This is the last Legion from 2025 that I haven't looked at yet. This is the Legion Pro 7. This one here is the AMD model though. The AMD model comes with two different CPUs. I decided to get the Cadillac, the 9955 X3D. That X3D cache, well, it won't be used in every game. There are certain scenarios where it will come in absolutely clutch if you're playing a lot of competitive games, for example. This one here, I've actually showcased in a video that I just put out today, actually, and that one was comparing the 7 Pro to the 5 Pro, or Pro 5. Which one should you buy, the Pro 5 or the Pro 7? This one was partially featured in that, but I also had the Intel model as well. So this is the Intel model of the Pro 7. This one here is the top, so it's 275HX with the 5090. You can get this one going down the stack, of course. You don't have to get a 5090, you can go down. And the same with this. This is the 9955H X3D. This one here automatically comes paired with a 5080. One other thing to consider, I will put some links in the video description down below to this product. There will be affiliate links if I can find some for your country, for your store, whatever. Again, I don't have any direct affiliation with Lenovo or whatever, or Amazon or whoever I'm putting those links for. It does help support my channel a lot. I've said this in a couple videos. YouTube specific income is not great. It doesn't allow me to buy all these laptops. I bought like 12 high-powered gaming laptops this month, basically, this week, last week, sorry, and I'm putting on a slew of content on those. So those affiliate links do help me a lot if you use them. And on that note, I do have a lot of content coming out looking at things like wattages, different performance scaling, different laptops. I have a lot of comparative stuff coming out too. So stay tuned for those, but this video is about this laptop. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the different options here. We'll go with the American website. It's going to make it a lot easier for pricing. So we have the AMD one and the Intel one. Just go view models, come build, and we'll come, what's the different one? Are there two? Whatever, we'll go here. Okay, build. So today, I don't know, whatever. Today we have two different CPU options. The Intel model doesn't have multiple CPU options, it only has one, the 275HX. The AMD model has the 9955HX and the 9955HX3D. This is a very high-end desktop CPU, to be honest, just slapped into a laptop and lowered the watts technically. And this is the X3D variant of it. So this is essentially the 7950X. Go away. And this is the 7950 X3D, like desktop chips slapped in here. These here are based on the 265K, tweaked a little bit, but these are like basically those chips. The X3D is going to offer 3D cache. So if you play games that demand 3D cache and benefit from it, such as online MMOs, simulation games, or you lower your resolution down to like 1080p and you play a lot of competitive shooters, obviously this is going to perform better, if you care. Today we're going to be looking at the 9955 HX3D. Obviously I got the one that's a little bit more unique. We have access to SODIMM and C-SODIMM. So this AMD does come with SODIMM as an option and SODIMM as an option. You can't get C-SODIMM. C-SODIMM is faster. It's not supported on AMD. The Intel one, we do have access to C-SODIMM. I'm actually reviewing this as well, and with the 5090, and I do have a C-SODIMM setup, so very good. They both have dual dual SSD. Pick whatever you want. Coming down here, the Intel one, you have a 5070 Ti, a 5080, and a 5090, right? So you have three different options. I think if we go with this here, the non-X3D, we can go down a tier. Yeah. So if we go to the non-X3D, we can get a 5070 Ti. But then if you go to the X3D, you automatically go to the 5080. There is no 5090, but that's still pretty good. Over here on the Intel model here, we do have the 5070 Ti or 5080 or 5090. You can just pick whichever one you want. Of course, you can go all the way up to a 5090. Very good. They have the exact same screen. Let's go here. Doesn't matter which one we pick on here. Included specifications. So we do have the 1600p OLED screen. It's glared for sure. 500 nit, or you can go HDR 1000. 100% DCI-P3 is beautiful, obviously. 240 hertz on both of them. It's very reflective. Just be aware of that. That's great. Wi-Fi 7 on both of them, and same battery, 99 watt hour battery. So pretty much what you're getting here is a difference in CPU. That's the biggest difference. And then the GPU here goes up to a 5090. Here you don't have access to that, and they're a little bit of a weird pairing. So yeah, let's jump in and actually look at them now. We have the 7i Pro, or 7 AMD Pro, and then we have the 5i Pro here. They are quite different inside. They're both pretty good considering their class, but obviously there's a lot more going on in the 7. So this is a 5070 Ti, 5080. So they're both relatively performant, obviously, in terms of performance. 80 watt hour battery on the 5 to start here. So that's reasonable. for what it is. There's a little bit of extra room here. They could put something slightly bigger. 99 watt hour battery here on the 7i Pro, so you do get 20% larger battery. We do have differences in speakers. The 7i Pro, 7 Pro come with better speakers, significantly better speakers than the 5 series. Other things before we get into the upgradability, you can obviously see quite a bit of a difference in terms of cooling. The 5 series here, you do get a dual heat pipe setup here. Over here though, we have quite an enhanced cooling system here. So for one thing, we have a giant vapor chamber here. So vapor chamber is obviously going to be much better than your traditional heat pipe with 2 heat pipes at least. So this is going to be quite nice. You'll be getting a lot more cooling there. The fans are the same style and everything, so there's nothing really different there, but the vapor chamber does offer quite a bit more cooling, and vapor chambers in general work quite well. We do have a third fan, an auxiliary fan here that's going to blow even more air through. The other difference here, we do have on the 5, the first slot here for NVMe. It comes with a 2242, but you can put in a full one without any problems. You just take that out and then put it in there. You do get your second slot over here, 8 terabyte on this side here, and because it takes dual-sided over here, once again, I only recommend putting a single-sided over here as well. The RAM is under here, so you have to take off this whole shield to service the RAM, whereas on the 5, you actually just pop off this here, and your RAM is under there. So upgrading the RAM on this is much easier, upgrading the storage, because they're exposed. Here, you do have to take off this plate. It's not too difficult, but you do have to take off this plate to upgrade the storage, or the RAM, or change it out, because this one focuses a little bit more on cooling. You're paying for some of the extras in here, more cooling, vapor chamber cooling, extra fans, more battery, better speakers, that kind of stuff. So very interesting. Okay, now what I want to do here is I want to compare the speakers. I'm not going to have compared max volume, but what I do want to compare is kind of like volume, like sound quality, put it that way. So we'll go with the 5. Seven. Yeah, so I mean, they're not going to, neither of them are going to match like a MacBook Pro 16-inch or something, or my Yoga 9i Pro, but there is a pretty big difference nonetheless. So this one here, the 5, it's passable. Like, it's not a bad set of speakers, but they don't do much for me outside of that. They'll be fine for like casual music listening. They're more for like games and, you know, shows and that kind of stuff. They'll do the trick. Right? The 7 Pro obviously are much better. You get more speakerage in general, and there's a lot more bass and a lot more richness and fullness. So these are much better speakers here. We'll come in here, we'll throw in performance mode, and we'll let it rip, see how noisy it is and see what kind of watts. We should get similar performance. The 3D cache on the 9955 HX3D doesn't help. It doesn't do anything for Cinebench. So if you get the 9955 HX versus the 9955 HX3D, you're not going to get any benefit in things like Cinebench out of the X3D cache. You will get it in gaming, of course. Okay, so we get here in that first run. So 38,750, very similar to the Intel, almost exactly the same. I'll consider the margin of error different. This chip you can see here isn't as hot, but it's not allowed to get as hot. The 3D cache here, and that it doesn't want to be as hot. So this one will throttle at a lower temperature. You can see it's also lower watts. That was 190-ish. This was peaking up at 155, so 40 watts lower peak. And it's maintaining that because it's not as many watts. So this is maintaining the same peak, the same watts as the other 7. That was about 165 or so. This is 155, very close, but that's what the chip is designed to do. So yeah, just kind of see how it goes. Sounds basically the same as the Intel. 10 lower watts, 10 to 15 lower watts, meaning it's ever so slightly easier to maintain those temperatures. But they're basically the same, put it that way. We don't need to do too many benchmarks because this laptop's been out for a while. We know what the components are, what they can do. But battery life is a concern on these laptops. When the Phoenix range and Dragon range first came out, they did have horrible battery life. However, due to things like BIOS tuning, wattage tuning, and tuning from AMD themselves, it does look like the battery life is actually a little bit better than these laptops used to be able to achieve in the past. So just hanging out here in Windows, we are at 60 Hertz refresh, but we have full brightness and everything else going. You know, we're idling around 15 to 20 watts. Not really doing anything. I mean, it's not crazy, but it's not bad for an AMD HX processor nowadays. So that'll give you, 4 to 5 hours, just kind of hanging out, not doing much. Once you actually start doing stuff, so we just did some 1080p 60 YouTube here just to kind of see what we get. And we are going to be jumping up in wattages, so 25 to 30-ish range. Not fantastic for a laptop. I mean, we're just watching YouTube. However, it's better than it used to be. It'll still give you, 3 to 4 hours of YouTube playback. Back in the day, these laptops would give you like an hour or two at best. So one thing that I have noticed here is that the NVIDIA GPU is parking and actually turning itself off properly, which seemed to be an issue in the past. So because the NVIDIA GPU is turning off, the CPU is able to, really just be the only real source of high wattage burn here, and it's okay under these type of tasks. Once you start moving around a lot, it will drop down even more, a little bit less battery life, but you can expect 3 to 4 hours out of this, it's okay for a high power gaming laptop. Okay, so let's jump into a little bit of gaming here. We're going to test some games that benefit primarily from the X3D. I mean, we have a 5080 here and a powerful CPU, so it's going to run like a 5080 with a powerful CPU. But what we have here that's interesting and different is the X3D cache. Of course, we can look at noise in that. How does this perform in noise? But generally speaking, I mean, these laptops should perform similarly. But having that X3D cache, wherever it is here, hard to just read all this crap, but the X3D cache there really does set things apart here because there are going to be games that benefit from it. Cyberpunk being one of them. It's a very CPU heavy. Games like Baldur's Gate, MMOs, of course, and online competitive shooters. So we'll start here with a little bit of Cyberpunk. What I'm going to do here more than anything is I want to show it externally. I'm not going to do game capture. Some people ask me that. I don't game capture laptops unless I'm looking at specific metrics because I want to show the screen and the noise. It's very important because that's part of the experience here. Anyways, so let's check our settings here. We are at 1600p. We'll come over here. We'll go without ray tracing to start, so we'll just go ultra. It's just easy to measure. 1600p ultra native, and there you go, very good. Now, one of the benefits you'll see on this X3D cache in general is the lows should maintain very well. A lot of the time when you come through here, like if you were getting an average of 75, 80, you'd get slightly lower lows, you'd get dropped down here and there. You shouldn't have that issue here because you have X3D cache. CPU is pulling a lot of watts, to be honest, 84, but it's a CPU heavy game. GPU here, you're able to pull a lot on these 7i Pro systems. Look at that, 170 watt. Holy! I actually didn't know they went that high. I thought that they went like they would stable at 150 and they would boost up to 170. But that's really high. VRAM is over 8 gigabytes, so again, it's nice that we have that extra VRAM. Very good. Frame rate, like 100 FPS, that'll be gonna be quite good. So again, we're not going to do too much here in this specific game, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw in a little bit of scaling here just so we can show you some other cool stuff here. And what I want to show you here is some of the, we'll go DLSS transformer model, we'll go balance because I want the frames to go up higher. Okay, so that's good. That gives us a nice high frame rate. Now watch the watts here, 71 to 80-ish on the GPU, on the CPU, sorry. Looks like it wants to be around 80. And like I said, the GPU is up at 170. Very high frames, 120, 115 average. So we're going to run into balance mode here. And we can see here the noise under performance mode when we're totally maxed out. .54, 55. Not annoying by any means. That the acoustic profile is not annoying, but just be aware of that. Now, watch this. 115-ish. So this is balance mode here. You can see the GPU, huge drop in the GPU. 60. Wow, that's like 100 off the GPU to go to balance mode. That's interesting. The CPU is still pretty high. Again, this is a CPU heavy game. In games where you're not a CPU bound, you won't notice as much here. Still good performance though. We'll go all the way down to silent. Now the GPU is probably going to start choking a little bit, but I mean, 50 watts, man. 50 watts and you're still getting 60 FPS almost. It's kind of crazy, to be honest. 50 on the 5080 and 35 on the CPU, and we're still getting almost 60 here. That's, I mean, it is pretty impressive, you have to admit. And the laptop is now essentially silent. Okay, so what I'm going to show you here is I want to show you some wattage scaling in a game that's much more GPU heavy. It still will use CPU, but it doesn't require as much CPU as something like Cyberpunk. So we'll come in here. We'll put on some, DLSS, that kind of stuff. It doesn't really matter what the performance is here, but it'll be good regardless. But we'll come in here. Right, so a nice 120 FPS, whatever. We'll just come over here. We'll just hang out here for a moment. 120 FPS, whatever. High GPU, high CPU. Okay, we're going to go into balance mode. Right, and you can see here we do drop a lot on the CPU, but not as much as Cyberpunk. A lot on the GPU, but not as much as Cyberpunk, because it's okay in this game here for the CPU to not pull as much, because it's not as heavy of a CPU game. So the CPU went down to 40. It wasn't choking at 60, but the GPU didn't go all the way down to like 60, for example. We did still drop a lot off of the GPU, but not as much. So we'll go back up here for a second. Now we're at performance. Or more quiet. Now we're at performance. So watch this GPU go all the way up to 100 again. We know what the noise is. 55, 56, whatever. And, so the CPU here is pulling 80-ish watts. The GPU is pulling about 170. 128 FPS or so. Generally good performance. Okay, we'll go down again. Okay, it's going to get much quieter. You'll notice that, as I said, the GPU will drop down. It takes a second for it to figure out where it wants to put the watts. But let's check the noise here. Right, like 8 or 9 dB drop is actually a lot. And here, we did lose FPS, of course, but we still have over 100 FPS, or about 100 FPS. So we lost 20. So we lost, what was that, 20%, 25%, something like that. Okay, we'll go down to silent. It will perform in silent as well. That's the interesting thing here. So now the CPU is down to around 35. The GPU is down even more, but we're at 75. So we're still, it's not like we halved the performance here, right? We did take the peak performance of the GPU down by like 60% lower, more than that, like 66 or 70% lower watts. But we did not lose that much performance. It's very good. So that's one of the benefits of these systems these days. The Intel or the AMD, the CPUs are reasonably efficient. It's not going to be as efficient as like an H processor or something, but still pretty good. The GPUs, though, are very efficient, right? You can really decrease the performance. It's pretty impressive. I mean, look at the GPU wattages here, right? Of course, you do have access to other things. You can come in here and go to Legion Space, and you can make custom performance modes. So we'll come in here and do that. But let's check the noise here under this silent mode. Right, so if you're playing games that aren't so demanding, or you're okay with just 60 FPS, 65, 70 FPS, that's what you do. You throw it on silent, maybe a touch of scaling, something like that, and you can really, really improve the noise, the acoustics. So we're going to come in here. I'm going to go to custom mode now. I'm going to make a custom mode, so I'm going to come in here. Yeah, get out of here. So just make that a little bigger. The way I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the CPU down. I'm just going to give the CPU maybe, let's say, 30 watts. CPU long term. I think 30 will be the lowest over here, 50, whatever. Put that all the way down. 30. Temperature limit's okay. GPU temperature limit's fine. CPU platform short term, go down. So I'm really choking the CPU to really low. I'm not going to put it all the way down to like 20 or something, but that'll be too low. And for this game, it'll be too low. But the GPU, GPU to CPU, I don't want it to give anything. Don't forfeit any CPU. Like it'll cause it to that. But what we can do here now is we can crank the GPU up, right? So this is a high GPU, very high GPU performance and very low CPU. Okay, let's come in and see how that looks. This is a little bit weird because we're giving the GPU like a ton and the CPU not nearly as much. Now, even though we gave the GPU as much as it wanted, it's potentially not going to use all of it because the CPU might be a little limited here. Right, so that's compared to that performance mode, we're all basically the same, but we're using less watts. Now, what I'm going to do here, one more thing, is these, like I said, these are pretty efficient. So I'm going to bring the GPU down just a touch here. Maybe around 110, that might be a good spot. It's not going to give us the performance of 150, obviously, but it's much higher than that 80 or 90 or whatever. And look at that. Right, we only lost about 12 FPS, 13 FPS. And in a moment, it'll start to quiet down. Right, it's not bad. There it goes, starting to quiet down. So it's kind of a compromise, right? You give the CPU not too many watts, but then you give the GPU a little bit more, because then you're not, around like 80 or whatever it was, or 75. You're still getting a lot of performance here. It's just making it a little bit quieter. So you can really play with it, right, and decide what kind of noise profiles you want, how you want to set it up. That's very good. Okay, so now the next thing I want to do here is I want to jump over and we'll do maybe some Battlefield 6 and really show off what the X3D can do in some competitive games. Now I suck, but we'll do it anyways. Okay, so I died. So here's Battlefield 6. Okay, so now we're on like a competitive setting, I guess I'd say. 1080p, or 1200p, sorry, low. And you can see that the performance didn't like skyrocket. It didn't go from, 120 to 400, but that's just the way that it is. The GPU, you can see the GPU performance, the GPU watts is actually down, but the CPU is just getting slammed here. But we should be able to maintain a higher low FPS is what we're going for here. So yes, the average is up slightly, but what we're really looking for here is higher lows. So for people who are super competitive, I'm not sure how, this isn't like Counter-Strike where people are like, they need a bazillion FPS or for whatever reason. I feel like most people, what am I doing? I feel like most people would be playing this game, and as soon as I pick up the controller, I die. Thanks. I feel like most people who would be playing this game are like, they're happy to get, 120 with 70 FPS split or whatever I said it was. But, I don't know. Some people are like, I need the most FPS. And, that's the thing here. You can go with these lower settings here, of course. And the thing is, the X3D cache will really help a lot with keeping the lows up. That's the key here. And if the low, that is one thing that I will notice in a competitive shooter. If the lows do drop a lot, you will legitimately, you'll risk dying because you'll get a big low, you'll get some stutter, and that can mean the difference between life and death. If someone's shooting you and you're like, and you hitch for a second, they move, you don't see it, you're toast, right? And look at the lows here, they're very good. Man. The jumping meta is in Battlefield 2. Yeah, fuck. Just so that's what people do in real war. They just jump around. I always hated that. That's so stupid. I mean, I don't really play competitive shooters online because they are very unrealistic. I used to play Modern Warfare. So I used to play World at War in those games because they're just generally somewhat more realistic. They're also old. But they weren't meant to be super fast. Look at those lows. It's fantastic, right? You're getting very good average with excellent lows, very consistent. I don't actually expect a huge, the average doesn't change probably much, right? Because we went from a super CPU heavy scenario to now we're hitting up the GPU more, but You can see the average. It's up a same idea basically. The lows might come down a touch, but still very good, right? So I mean, in these type of scenarios, honestly, you're better off just playing at 1600p. It's still going to run so well, and that's what the resolution of the screen is. You'll get the good lows in that. I'm not using scaling here, so this is a 1600p native. Yeah, you should probably actually like pay attention to like winning, but not that good anyways. But from behind, sneak attack. Anyways, it runs very well, right? So if you want to play competitive shooters, MMOs, simulation games, one of the things that matters a lot because it's competitive. Oop, that guy revived me. Is you want to keep your lows up, right? Because otherwise, you do risk, like if the lows drop down. I mean, I suck regardless, but if the lows drop down, you are at an increased risk of dying because it's going to hitch, and then you're going to basically not know what's going on, and then that second or two, someone could be running in front of you and killing you, right? So having those really good lows is going to make a big difference. Okay, so should you buy this here? Of course, when you have to consider as well the Intel model, and then of course you have other laptops, like for example the Legion 5 Pro or Pro 5. You have other brands as well. Well, let's go over some positive negatives that may help here. Negatives of this one here, battery life is probably the biggest negative. The Intel model does have better battery life. The X3D one here actually does seem to do better than the non-X3D battery, interestingly, or it could just be general optimizations and things like BIOS and that. When I first reviewed like the Phoenix Range and Dragon Range CPUs, and I've used them many times, every single time I use them, their battery life is terrible. It's not great by any means, not great by any means. Idling, you're gonna get 5 to 6 hours. Once you start doing something, YouTube are actually using the thing, you'll get a few hours, 3, maybe 4 hours out of it. So it's not great. I mean, it's a powerful gaming laptop, so I don't think it's the biggest consideration. If you're looking for a battery life, you get like an Arrow Lake or, the Panther Lake coming out, or even the Intel HX chips just offer better battery life. So that's the negative. I mean, there's other things too. You do have a plasticky chassis here. It is prone to fingerprints. So that's a negative as well. But I mean, there's not really much more. I mean, there's a lot of positives here. So build quality is good. Again, it does have a little bit of plastic on it, but the build quality generally is good. Metal bottom, metal lid, plastic interior, but feels premium. Trackpad is fine. I mean, it's not a glass trackpad, but it's fine. Keyboard is obviously quite good. Legions have very good keyboards. The audio on this is very good. Actually, for a gaming laptop, it's going to be like up there with some of the best. Screen is obviously quite good. If you don't like reflections, right, they are glossy OLEDs, so you do get a glossy OLED, but you get then also the benefits of the OLED being all like dark blacks, and you get the benefits of it being 100% DCI-P3, all that, and pretty bright and all that as well. Now, one of the advantages of the 7 Pro or Pro 7 over some of the other laptops, excellent cooling. So you do get that vapor chamber cooling. It does keep temperatures down quite a bit. It helps prevent throttling, and it also keeps noise down. So that's fantastic. Loads of upgradability in this. So this laptop compared to other powerful laptops with a 5080, this one can trade blows and in many cases beat them in terms of like performance scaling, performance modes, all that kind of stuff, and still having good audio, all that other stuff that makes it a little bit more premium. So that's great. The CPU obviously is fantastic. It doesn't do well in terms of battery life, but it does offer very good performance. So it does scale well. When you do lower the wattages on the CPU, it still performs very well. That's awesome to see. It offers incredibly high raw CPU performance, basically on par with the Intel one. There's really no difference there. The X3D cache then does also help with certain types of games. Lots of games won't matter. AAA games that are very GPU heavy, it doesn't make no difference. There'll be no difference between this and the Intel model in terms of that at all. 5080 here, 5080 on Intel, it'll perform exactly the same. But there are games where it matters. Very CPU heavy games like Cyberpunk, obviously online competitive shooters, Battlefield, if you play like CSGO, even at higher resolutions like 1600p can matter. Really, it doesn't help with the average much, but it will bring up those lows. And in competitive games, bringing up the lows matters a lot, because if you have a huge drop off and a stutter where your character freezes, that can mean death. Or if you're playing an online MMO type game, or that type of stuff, yeah, you can actually, like, your character can die or your party can fail because you have hit a huge low. So in those cases, it can make a huge difference. So really, if you're deciding Intel versus AMD, think of the games you play. So if you play competitive games, a lot of competitive games, then you may actually want to lead towards the AMD one. You will sacrifice battery life, unfortunately. but you do get that benefit. Pricing might be different. That's another thing to factor in, but they're so dynamic. It's hard to say Intel or AMD is cheaper. It changes from time to time. So, for me personally, I would probably go for the Intel model because I do require good battery life because I often am disconnected and using my laptop for many hours. But if you don't care so much about that and you're like, it's a gaming laptop, I'm okay with a few hours battery, and when I want to get stuff really done, I'll plug it in. The AMD one is actually very good. It's very, very good. I don't necessarily recommend the 9955HX non-3D because it's just, you're getting the same performance as Intel, but with way worse battery life. So why would you buy that? But the X3D one is at least interesting, novel, and it has something to offer. So in this case, this is a very good laptop. If you're comparing this to all the different options here, I mean, the AMD offerings are typically not that great this year. The CPUs AMD is kind of falling behind. It's going to be even worse in 2026. It's 2026 right now. AMD is just going to keep falling behind. Unfortunately, they're just not really offering anything. Intel is just really coming out swinging. And you're going to see a lot of my channel just Intel, because it's just going to be the way to go. However, the X3D one does still offer a considerable benefit. So if you're going to go in AMD and you're thinking about going AMD, getting yourself into an X3D based CPU does make sense because it does have an absolute benefit that Intel still has yet to counter. So that's the laptop. Check out some links in the video description down below. Stay tuned for so much more content. I have so much content coming. Like early 2026 type stuff is just going to start flooding in, in a couple months. But before that stuff comes out, I have all kinds of content on gaming laptops and other stuff coming. So stay tuned. Keep checking them out.